Beautiful, 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 beautiful. I'm live. I am live. All right, all right. Good, good afternoon. Actually, it's good evening. I'm not sure where you are and what part of the world you are, but good evening from Little Rock, Arkansas. My name is Folake Uluokun, otherwise known as Dr. O. Today is the beautiful day, and we're doing this YouTube um hangout. Nice, 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 nice. Title of this is Discover Your Time Tips. Wow, discover your time tips. One of the things that I realize is time is precious. Time is the most important commodity that you and I have. Money can be replaced, treasure can be replaced, relationships can be replaced, time can never be replaced. Whatever time we have spent or wasted is gone forever. The question is, do we manage time or does time manage us? Interestingly, I have discovered that everybody has a strength in managing time. Most of us discover our strengths by error, and error is not a good way of discovering things because the expense is much more than being deliberate. See, when you discover your time, you potentially align with your vision, which is the way you see your present and your future. And your mission is to come from a strength of where am I going and getting there from where you are. Let me reframe that for you. Let's say you'd like to go to the Great Wall in China. That is the goal. It depends on where you are in the world. I mean, if you're in Beijing, China, it's a different route, depending on what part of the world you are, to get there. But if you don't know where you're going, makes no difference where you are because you are already where you want to go. So let's go back to the China illustration. If you're in Australia, then you have to figure how do you get from Australia to China, then to the Great Wall. In that process, you have to determine whether you're going to fly or you're going to go by boat or by car, which you have to figure out how to get your car across the oceans. But it gives you a framework. When you think of time as a tool that gets you results. See, when you look at time in terms of results, then you can see that your activities are either important or not. Anything that doesn't give you results is not important. Did I say that? Yes, I did. Most of the things that we often react to are things that they're not important. They don't bring results. They're just in front of us. Let me give you an example. When my phone rings, depending on who's on the other line and depending on what time it rings, it might not be important for me to pick it up because most times that's somebody else's agenda, unless I had called them earlier or unless they have a key input to my goals for that day. That's why managing time is not effective unless we manage ourselves first. What is important to you determines how you frame your time. What is important to you? If it is important to you to get to China, then anything that doesn't add to that experience is not important. Whereas somebody else's priority might not be to go to China, it might be to stay wherever they are in the world. There is the concept of putting first things first that was first written in Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Efficient People, Highly Effective People. 7 Habits. I believe this is habit number 3. In that habit, you put the first things first. 18th or 19th century philosopher Goethe says things which matter the most should never be at the mercy of things that matter the least. Things that matter the most should never be at the mercy of things that matter the least. Putting out fires like a firefighter when you're not a firefighter is not the way to live. Most of us have a crisis management. Everything's a crisis. Crises are they're an indication of chaos, of lack of planning or inadequate planning. Because when you plan, yes, you might have things happen, but they are more manageable than unplanned things. When you think of living in quadrants, imagine a line from top to bottom and across from your left to your right. Can you imagine that quadrant? Let me see if I can put that on this board behind me. Where you have, can you see? You have that. Can you see that line? And then you have that. You see the other line? Okay, let me see if I can put it in my yellow. So, got a line right there, and a line right there. See it? Hope you can. And this is the first quadrant. That is the second quadrant. That is your third. And that is the fourth quadrant. In this first quadrant are the things that are important and urgent. But the funny thing about the things that are important and urgent are there are crisis things that are important and urgent in this circle, even though, but that's not where you're going to want to be. It's just a crisis minded. Nobody can live from crisis to crisis. In this quadrant are the things that are both important and not urgent. Talks about managing your checkbook, taking time for relationships in this quadrant. In this third quadrant is the things that are not important but are urgent, and you're thinking about your short-term focus. I mean, if you're trying to get from one place to the other, you might need to get some gas, for example, fuel your car. That might fall into that because you didn't plan properly, but it's kind of urgent because if you don't have gas in the car, you're not going to be able to go where you're going. In this fourth quadrant, This is the quadrant of time wasters. This is the uh, binging on Netflix. This is the um, scrolling Facebook for hours and just being on social media your entire day. Um, so, quadrant living expects us to put our life in and our activities in those spaces. The problem is whether we put them in those spaces or not, we are living in quadrants. And if we're in the wrong quadrant, our lives are just impossible. I mean, you know how you just feel overwhelmed? Um, Here are some questions that might help you because they help me. Here's one of the questions. I feel like I'm always putting out fires. I'm in crisis mood all the time. That is quadrant one. I'm always putting out fires. Is that you? Another question is do you spend time on activities that help you build relationships? You know how we have relationships with our family, um, our work, with people in general. It takes time to cultivate relationships. That is in this quadrant. It's important, but it's not urgent. And the problem about things that are important and not urgent is that if we don't spend enough time in this quadrant, we'll never get out of the quadrant of crisis. Everything will be a crisis because imagine your relationship with the closest person to you. Imagine you neglect that relationship. After a while, that relationship will move from just being important and non-urgent to important and being urgent. That means you're going to be um, trying to make that person feel that you're part of that relationship by going out of your way to do things that should not be like putting out fires. You're buying gifts because you didn't do the right thing. You're always asking for forgiveness in that section because you didn't do what it took to make sure you build strong relationship. Um, why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing it up because in the discovering your time tips, not knowing who you are as a person will affect the way you deal with time. If you don't know who you are, you will always not do time correctly because knowing the quadrants is one thing, but knowing who you are is another. If you're a person who is push, 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 you'll enjoy the quadrant where you're pushing. But then you go neglect the quadrant that means so much. If you're someone who just wants to have fun, oh my goodness, you're going to stay in this quadrant. The fourth quadrant where all you do is the non-important, the non-urgent, and life is a blast. But what about the other quadrants? You got to live. If you're a person who you pay attention to details, which is an awesome place to be, but if you don't know who you are, you might spend too much time on details that you never get stuff done, and you're always staying in the quadrant that makes you appear, listen to my words, appear to be always doing the non-important but urgent things. Almost like you want to know how many pencils you have in that container for the conference. and you have to count each pencil, even though the boxes say they have 12 in each and they open 3 boxes and just say 36. You're going to count each one. I mean, it's okay, but it's not, because you don't get things done quick enough. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this for you to know that you have to know who you are, how you are built gives you your strength and your superpower. And it also gives you your blind spots. I collaborated in a book with 20 other authors. And it's an interesting book because here's the book. The title is Discover Your Team's Potential. And the interesting part of it? Each of us in the book came together to write our experiences on using a human personality assessment tool called the DISC. And here's what we all found. We saw the assessment through our own eyes, and we were able to help other people through that assessment see themselves as they truly are, embrace their strengths, acknowledge that they have some blind spots, and see the best way in aligning their mission, vision, and their action steps in order to be their best selves. That helps in time management quite a bit, because once I know, or you know, that someone is a go-getter, you know that if you give them anything to do, they'll do it. But if that was not your intent for them to have it done, then you're not going to broach the issue at all. If you know who you are first, then it'll help you recognize that when you're managing your time, you have some things that are going to trip you. That's just what it is. So the first thing to learn is to know who you are, discover who you are. The discover has 4 letters that I want to emphasize in its entire letter count. The DISC stand for personality traits and personality strength zones and ways of seeing and doing stuff. And the D, they're just direct people. You know how someone's always direct, and it's kind of annoying sometimes because they're just direct. Sometimes they appear to be so bossy. That's because they just want stuff to be done. And then you have the people that they just make you laugh. They're just flashy. That's all. They're flashy. They're very inspirational. They make you laugh. They make you they just inspire you. And sometimes you think they just inspire you so much, maybe they don't live in reality. The thing is, their key is laugh, party, fun, and they always see the glass half full. They don't see empty stuff at all. Then you have the S, and the S, they're really steady, stable people for the most part. They are the glue in any team. If you have a team that is lacking in some of the dominant S trait, oh my goodness, you're gonna have chaos in that team, because the D trait is just bulldozing everyone. The I trait is just wanting to have a party, forgetting that work needs to be done, and the S, they're the glue, kind of the egg that binds your ingredients in the meatloaf. Why did I bring food into the picture? I don't know, but I did. And you have the C. My goodness, let me tell you something about C. Um, they will measure twice to cut once. Have you met people like that? They see the details and they're particular. The good thing about having a C in your team, they make the best pilots. Imagine a pilot who doesn't go on the details. Not good. A pilot that's detailed will make sure the plane is fit to fly and to land precisely, not just get up and then you land just anywhere, you know. So when you think of that in time management, everybody has their own traits. And when I gave those four main traits, that's just the main traits. And most of us are a high blend in terms of two of the traits are more dominant in our lives, and then the other traits are there. We have every part of the trait. We're not completely dominant or inspirational or supportive or cautious, but we're each one of the traits. However, we have two dominant traits. Most of us do, and then some of us are a blend that has three almost dominant in different levels traits. The thing that happens that's kind of interesting is when we're stressed, we move from a primary number one to a number two, and then start to go back and forth. And it's interesting just to watch. Um, when you manage time, the D's they just want to bulldoze through time. The I's they just if there's a party, they think it's okay just to breeze in and breeze out. The S's are more steady, they're most likely going to be on time every time. Um, Not only does the C trait get there on time, you better finish on time because they've calculated the exact amount of time that you're going to spend, and they've calculated the time it will take them to get there and get them to get back out. This is just a brief overview of discovering your time tips, because your time tips depend on understanding that there is urgency that's important, there's urgency that is not important, there are important things that are not urgent, and there are things that are not important or urgent at all. So that's the quadrant theory of time. Then you have to discover who you are to understand how you do time. And so when you understand yourself, it becomes easier to appreciate another person who is different from you. Not better, not worse, just different. And the way you manage your interaction with that person will depend on how much you understand yourself, appreciate yourself, and then can appreciate them. And so you can synergize, complete each other because you're a leader, and not compete with each other. Because people who compete have lost their leadership. You heard what I said? Because complete has an L that compete doesn't. So people who compete have lost their leadership. That's why they can't complete. This is just a brief introduction into my perspective, and I love the disc and how it has changed my life. I usually talk faster than this, but I'm talking a little slower so that you can hear my words and understand um, the concept I'm bringing up. I'm going to be making YouTube videos a little more than I did before, and I'm going to use my whiteboard more in the future. But hey, this is Dr. O just sharing from the heart a few tips about just a few tips. I hope you got something out of this. Leave a comment below, and we'll do this some other time. Good night, everyone.